Yeah, I think
That's
so. We were on a live session before we got on here, before I hopped
hmm
on here, and they said they were on their way. So
okay. Now, any of them are free to. I can send them a link and they can get on here, and
yeah, I
anybody else.
actually told I actually told Don about this. Do you mind if I invite Don?
Yes, invite him. Send him that same link that I sent you, and tell
All
me,
right.
ask him to jump on. Yeah, I
Some
just want to have a conversation.
sometimes, depending on what frame of mind I'm in, I can be really horrible at sustaining conversation or losing my focus. So sometimes having lots of people is good for me.
Yeah, I'm the
You
same
know?
way. I'm the same way. Yeah. Sometimes I can just talk, 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 and sometimes, you know, it could be a little challenging.
Yeah.
I get it.
I often find myself taking the role of the listener, especially in rooms with a lot of people and a lot of opinions floating around.
Yeah.
I'll just shut down.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
prefer
Same
one
here.
on one or managed conversation. Otherwise, it gets too hectic and chaotic for me.
Yep.
So,
I'm totally get it. I totally get it. Trying to figure out, chat with everyone in the studio. Comments. All right. Um, so anyway, we were gonna talk about The Keepers. Did you also watch the other one, the one that I recommended?
we
Or you
did. I
watched them
guess
both?
yeah, you didn't see my comments. I gave you some funny responses just because those things are really interesting. I'm really not surprised by any of them anymore. Those stories.
Yeah.
It's I've seen enough crazy stories to know that crazy exists in the world.
Yeah.
And not even really trying to disparage anybody in those assertions. Just I'm sorry, those things go beyond the boundaries of what I consider even in the realm of normal.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just maybe something I can't comprehend. I don't know, but yeah, I felt dirty afterwards. Let's just put it that way. That's usually the way I
Yeah.
come out of those things, feeling a little bit dirty as a human being.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. So with the Keepers, that was the one with the Catholic priest,
mhm.
and he was horrible,
It
absolutely
was.
horrible.
I think it ended up being two of them, kind of collaborating with each other, right? Sort of
Yeah.
in their mechanisms of control.
Mhm.
Both of them
Mhm.
escaped any kind of justice
Yeah.
before they passed away, any
Yeah.
real,
Mhm.
justice, whatever that would be. Um, and
Yeah.
and a murder of a nun that was covered up basically by the
Mhm.
Catholic Church and by the local police department, a collaboration there.
And they
Um,
still, to this day, they still have not solved her murder. And as far as I'm concerned, all the evidence is right there.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's the hard part. The hard part is, without knowing absolutely 100% for sure, even though you can pretty much put your finger on it.
mhm.
that's
Yeah.
that's the real hard part. That's
And
just like this thing we were just talking about of taking sides. It's like you could
mhm.
choose to take a side there and say this is absolute or understand that it's not absolute, but
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, we can we
Yeah.
can we can maybe make some conclusions there.
Mhm.
Um,
And me being a woman, and looking at those women and what they went through and how they were treated and how they never got justice is just really sad. And that just goes to show why most victims of that type of abuse never speak out, because it's just his word against mine. And women get accused of being of lying, or of she brought it on herself because of this or that, or the way she was dressed, or because she led them on. Like, man, the whole thing of having to be careful of leading a man on. Like, I've heard, like, older mothers and grandmothers, are really intent about teaching their daughters about not leading someone on. And that is so unfair, because it's not, like Kyle was trying to get on. It's not about, hey, Kyle, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. We were just talking about,
Good morning.
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Um, we were just talking about how that I think I told you about the series on Netflix that we were going to watch and discuss about. It was called The Keepers, and it was these priests that were in cahoots and doing things to these girls in this girls' school. And I was just talking about how in my um, culture, how these women, like our older aunties and moms and grandmoms, teach us about how we shouldn't do things to lead men on, and how we get blamed for being assaulted when it's we haven't done anything, but how we still can end up being blamed because of for our own abuse. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
yeah, and it's just so unfair how that happens. And and those women, they just, like I said, they never got any justice or anything. And but how does someone claim to be holy and a man of God and do things like that for a long, like, it was hundreds of girls. Well, it started out with a boy, if that was even his first victim. So it didn't matter whether it was boys or girls, it was just whoever was available. So it was the altar boy at first, and then it was the girls in the girls' school. And
Yeah, and for me, it's not like I'm always cautious to say that this is not a story that tells me religion is bad. This is a story that tells us what happens when we don't question things enough, when we take things
yeah.
at for what they are, and we don't dig in and question why things are the way they are.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, a lot of lack of questioning went on there, and it
Yeah.
let it fade into oblivion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that like you said, it was just it was a lot of cover up. It was a lot of people just turning their heads and not paying attention to what was going on because they didn't want to know. And the one that did stick her nose into it ended up dead. So that's why they turned their head, because they know they knew they weren't more powerful than the Catholic Church. At the end of the day, that's who was
mm,
covering it up. That's who kept moving him from one place to the next. And um, someone lost their life for that. And then all
mhm.
those other women, were traumatized for their entire lives, had to overcome all the abuse that they suffered. And it was just so, I mean, it was just so horrible. Like, it wasn't just, he was giving them out to other people, other men, letting other men come in and do things to him. Like, it wasn't just him. Like, it was and they all knew. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that something could go on like that for so long and nobody speak up and say anything about it. And still,
It's the same thing we've talked about, right? It's fear. It's the fear that's built into the system, the fear that, you be judged based on what you do or don't do and who you take as your authority figures in life. And um,
yeah.
yeah, it's all those same things. I got to say, it's really strong of these ladies who did speak up in the
Hmm.
documentary and speak out against it. And once again, I told you, maybe I could just sum up for the audience, but I grew up with the children of these ladies who were in this documentary who were
Yeah.
abused by these priests directly. And I also had inklings of, in my experiences with them, of abuses still going on in these schools and in these
Yeah.
religious affiliated institutions. Maybe not to the degree of murder, but still, how do you justify that if children, young kids, are still being abused?
Hmm.
However it is. I heard stories of people still slapping knuckles
Yeah.
because you disobeyed with a nun, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that things didn't just stop there, but yet
Hmm.
things seem to just stop there. What continued on in the history?
Yeah.
You know, I
I
think
think
that would
that
only take more strong people to step up and talk about it.
right. Right.
So
Yeah,
I
this
think
this particular topic, even though I haven't watched the documentary, is I want to be careful with painting things with these broad strokes because it is a sensitive and it deserves the care and compassion in discussing it. And with that being said, no matter the epigenetics behind it, no matter the generational trauma, no matter the system that was set up to elicit fear, it is never the victim's fault. And unfortunately, it's it's not helpful that doctrines and religions are set up for scapegoating this type of vile behavior.
Hmm.
It's
Where'd she go?
I
Kyle,
think
you
I think
muted.
she muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought I would stop there.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. And I think that for me personally, I think right, could be true, could not be true, but I think that a big part of it with the priests and whatnot is just that it's unnatural for a man to um to not be with a woman. You know what I mean? Like I think that where it's set up to where they're not supposed to be with women is they're supposed to be what celibate or abstain, or I don't know what the terminology is that priests are supposed to do, the correct terminology or whatever, but they're not supposed to marry, they're not supposed to be, with women. And I think that's unnatural, and I think that that creates unnatural, causes them to do unnatural things. Does it make sense?
Mhm.
Wait a minute. You're going to need to repeat that one more time for me. I don't think I heard you.
I said I think it's unnatural for people in general to be to abstain for their whole lives. That's not, that we're not made to be that way. And because priests take that vow of celibacy, that a lot of them, that's why these bad things happen, because it's unnatural for them to take that vow, and so now they're doing unnatural things that they shouldn't be doing. That's
Well,
harmful.
I'm I'm going to have to push back on that.
Okay.
Absolutely not. There is a difference between being abstinent and being a predator, maliciously, intently, disgustingly. There is a complete difference. To what, by your logic, you're actually giving it an excuse. That's what it sounds like. I'm just telling you.
Well, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that it just is such a prevalent thing. It seems to be such a prevalent thing. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's right or that it's okay. I'm just saying I just think that that could be a big part of why it happens. Why is it so prevalent?
So yeah, I have a perspective on that, and actually, I was going to bring this up earlier. I think it comes down to some other rudimentary things like making the human body, parts of it, taboo.
Hmm.
You know, sort of things we don't talk about, things that don't get discussed regularly, the sexual nature of people, that we are biological, sexual, social creatures. All these notions kind of get put aside for these notions of purity
Yeah.
and lack of sin. And each one of those things comes along with some sort of cost, right? Like
Hmm.
playing with yourself. If you masturbate, you're sinning, I think, in some people's eyes.
Hmm.
Um, therefore, and I think this is things why, for instance, like circumcision is still prevalent today, because our bodies are considered so taboo that we don't even teach our children necessarily to clean their private parts,
Yeah.
beyond things like phimosis.
Yeah.
And of course, when you don't do that, cancers are more prevalent, infections
Hmm.
are more prevalent. So
Yeah.
circumcision is a medical solution to a social problem,
Yeah.
if you will. So this is where all this stuff is getting confused. And I kind of agree a little bit with Kyle here. Like, I don't want to draw that distinction, but I will say that I have heard a lot of people from within different faiths talk about how priesthood does attract a certain type of people.
Mm.
that abstinence and sex does attract a certain type of people that maybe feel outcast in some way, want answers from God,
Mm-hmm.
don't find them maybe necessarily, don't find satisfaction in them, and then end up expressing their sexual desires, deviances, whatever you want to call them, in various
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
I wouldn't once again want to paint everybody with broad brushstrokes like
Right.
Kyle was saying. So I totally agree there. I'm always cautious of the casualties that with those broad strokes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Kyle,
Yes, ma'am.
did you want to say anything more about that, or respond to what Brian said?
Um, no, go ahead and you respond.
Okay. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, about a certain might be a certain type of person that chooses that life in the first place. I get that.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
sociopaths becoming CEOs. The two things seem to tend to want to align in some way, shape, or form. Um, But,
Yeah.
once again, I used to be the CEO for my company. I don't think I'm a sociopath, or a psychopath. So, but
I don't
maybe
think
that's
so
just my judgment. Maybe I am a
either.
sociopath. I don't
Well,
know. We'll see.
so far, I haven't seen any indication of that. I've only known you a couple of weeks, but I haven't seen
Yeah.
any markers for that so far.
I'll try and
Um,
keep that to a minimum.
so, what was the name of the other movie we watched? The other, it was
Keep
Sweet.
sweet, pray and obey. Keep sweet,
Yeah,
pray and obey. Yeah,
Keep Sweet, Pray,
yeah.
and Obey. And that guy's still incarcerated.
Yeah, I don't think I actually looked at it. I think my wife did because we watched it together. Um,
Yeah,
I
I think
didn't
he
look
got
up
like
to his current fate, but yeah, I would assume he's
yeah,
still in prison. So,
he is. I think when he got like 100, he got life plus 20 years or something like that, I think. And but he still has people that are following him. Of course, it's not as prominent. The church is not as prominent as it had been, but he still has people that still follow him. And I think we saw a little glimpse of that at the end of the last episode. But also, just the whole thing with that is they were in that enclosed community, no outsiders, and that just gave him the opportunity just to manipulate and just do any and everything that he wanted to do,
mm,
under the guise of being the prophet and
yeah.
the chosen prophet, and everybody just following along with that. And
Yeah, I think this is an instance where they just got too big for their britches because if you look at it, like if you research, there are still these little pockets of these sects that exist today that are still doing these same abuses, just not to the degree of this one particular area that had
yeah,
encompassed the entire area, including law enforcement,
hmm,
social services, all these things. It became too much of a sore thumb.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, that was um that was really sad, and I think I kind of remember, like, they were showing Oprah and some other news shows and stuff. I think I kind of remember that, and it was depicted as that, that these people were being picked on, and they were just trying to live their lives, and were being picked at and whatnot. It kind of, it did look that way, but that wasn't the whole story. We didn't get the whole story. um but it's kind of hard because on one hand, it's like I want to live on this. I don't want to call it a commune. I call it a homestead. Commune sounds bad and negative, but I want this homestead. I want my own community and this and that, whatever, and to be left alone. And and that's all they wanted, but they were, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. So, like, I'm just like, at some point the government had to intervene. They had to go in and help those children. So it's just hard. It's just kind of like, what do you do? I want the
Yeah.
government out of my business, but then sometimes the government has to come in and be in your business, or else people can get hurt.
Hmm.
children were getting hurt.
I don't remember the time frame of that. What was the time frame of that? Was that the 80s
I
when that
think
whole
it's
thing went down, or
I
into the
think it
90s,
into the
2000?
into the into the 2000s. I
Mm,
want to
okay.
say,
I wanted to draw a comparison to, if you're familiar with David Koresh and Waco and
hmm
the
the Waco
Branch
fire.
Davidians. I think that's what they called
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah, I remember them.
Um, this is an instance where I think, like, well, geez, try not to be too judgmental here, but the Mormons in that instance, I think, were blatantly committing clear violations, human violations, whereas
Hmm.
in David Koresh, they were painted as violating some clear, boundaries of human rights and but it wasn't obvious. And the more you look into the details, it was more about just sort of the outer view from what they were doing that was vilifying them, that was
Hmm.
turning them into ghosts that they weren't necessarily. I know that's a very controversial view.
Hmm.
A lot of this comes from the negotiator guy that worked with back and forth, that tried to resolve situations, said that often the military and the local government was overreaching their
Yeah.
authority, their ability, and that's what ended up in tragedy.
Mm.
So yeah, it's hard to draw that distinction when it comes down to ideology, because whose
Yeah.
ideology is right and whose isn't.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I don't
it's a
really
hard thing
remember
to
what
do.
all the Branch Davidians were doing. I don't remember. Well, I never really looked into it. I just knew that they were a cult and that there was a fire and all that. But
Yeah, I think
I
there was
don't.
some evidences of some young marriages. Um, um, well, yeah, I think David Koresh, eventually it ended up David Koresh was the only one that was allowed to marry and have children, I think. And some of them may have been underage
Hmm.
comparatively, maybe not to the degree of 11, 12 years old. I don't know. I don't remember the details there.
Yeah.
But they were also hoarding weapons, was
Hmm.
some of the claims against them, that they were illegally hoarding weapons for some devious purpose, minus just
Yeah.
self-defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's very gray once you start getting into those details.
Hmm.
Um,
But but yeah, that I don't even can't remember his name now. Like the whole thing of him, and then and then when he went out on the lam, and him and his favorite wife were going to Disney World and doing all this fun stuff that nobody in the commune
Nobody
was
else
ever
was
allowed
allowed
to
to do.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure they didn't even have TVs or anything, and they were just out living it up with all this money. And what was it, $300,000 a week that they were
Mm,
shipping to them
yeah.
while they were out on the run, and they were just doing it blindly. Just
I
here's the prophet's money.
Yeah, I get it, but here's my comparison, all right? Isn't this exactly what the wealthy do to the rest of society?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
how can we draw judgments there? That's
Yeah.
my only comparison, is that if you separate those things out from the ideology of the religion, whatever he's trying to teach, whatever the Branch Davidians do, versus just
Yeah.
corporate,
Yeah.
what is it, plutarchy, I think they call it, or,
Yeah.
you know, um, I don't really see a huge distinction that some people get more than others. It
Yeah.
just, you know,
Well, like you said,
I
that's
don't agree with it. I definitely don't
yeah.
agree with it, but it happens. I can't deny it. So,
Yeah, I I see. I agree with you as well. It's and but it's a shame that it's always the ones like that that use their brains and their minds and their abilities just to get over on everybody else. Like, why can't they use that to, take care of world hunger or cure cancer? But it's always those that you get in that powerful situation, and it's like I think a lot of them probably even maybe started out with the idea of being good and helpful, and but then once you get that power, it just you forget all about that. And
yeah,
that's you saw the progression with him, how he progressed to where he was taking away the children and separating the families and stuff like that. And It started out, he wasn't all that bad, and then that's when the children, the marriages, with the young children and all that started. Because before that first prophet, his dad passed away. They weren't marrying off children. Not to say that the situation was still good, but until they started dealing with the children, it was more or less a thing of was just their, the way they lived.
Mm.
And then he just screwed it all up after his father died. He just,
Yeah, the son Warren, right?
yeah,
So I got to tell you, even at that, even looking at all those what I consider to be gross activities going on, gross abuses of human rights, but I have to imagine Warren was probably abused in some way, and that's what led him to being the person that he was.
yeah,
He was exposed to some sort of abuse under his
yeah,
father, under his tutelage, under his guidance, whatever people
mhm,
were in his life that he wasn't protected from, whatever deviances that express
mhm,
themselves because of what are they, because of oppression or repression.
yeah,
Um, so I can't just completely 100% put him at blame for the
yeah,
activities that occurred.
yeah,
I can hold him accountable. That's about the best we can do,
right,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff. The things that we go through, the traumas and things that are inflicted upon us as children as we grow up, are going to determine who we are and how we treat everybody around us as adults. And like I've been having a lot of conversations about that lately, in my family. And it's just, if the things that we've gone through and that we've been put through and that we've experienced, if you don't take the time to heal from those things, you're just going to continue to, like, history's going to repeat itself. And
Yeah.
that's why it's good to take the time to know who you are and to figure out what's triggering you and what things you're still holding on to and what things you still haven't healed from, and do something about it, not just for yourself, but for your children, for your spouse, for the people that are around you that you're affecting their lives too, and then they're going to go through the same stuff because you didn't take the time to heal before you had children, and you're inflicting the same stuff on them. And if
The
somebody's with
notorious
6 children,
generational trauma, huh?
yeah, generational trauma. um Kyle, you
What about
unmuted, did you want to go
what
ahead?
about the people that don't have children? I think they should, standing up for what's right and doing the right thing for humanity is the most important thing. Fuck it if you don't have a family or
Well, I mean,
But also, I wanted to ask about what about the people that knew and helped support and condone this type of behavior for it to be in place and happen? And,
Hmm.
what accountability is being taken there? Do they have any remorse? Do they have any repercussions for not? It's this is a whole orchestra of a problem. It's just not one fixated on one component, one individual. It takes a
mhm,
lot of moving parts for this to actually happen,
I
and
agree.
to happen. I mean, quote unquote, under in disguise, bullshit,
yeah,
bullshit.
Yeah, well, but the fact that the only confounding factor is that they had basically built to a point where they had control of their entire territory and they were able to enforce rules, and everybody practically within, except for a few outliers who started to speak up and be ostracized or whatever, they were ideologically captured, and they're still
mhm,
ideologically captured
mhm,
today. So that's the
mhm.
problem.
That's the
It's
brainwashing.
Yeah, how do you convince the people who are ideologically captured that they're ideologically captured and that you're not just part of the opposition that they've been taught is the problem?
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's what they believe.
they've been taught to fear what seems rational. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
these they were brought up. Some of the people that were talking were people that had gotten out, but they had been brought up in it. They were born into this. So when you're
Hmm.
born into something, they were indoctrinated. This
Hmm.
is the only life they ever knew, the only life they ever saw. And one of the ladies that finally got out, she was talking about, I don't even know how to live out here. I don't know, people. I have this new job. I don't know how to talk to people. Everybody's talking about these TV shows they watch. I think it was Friends and some other stuff. She's like, I don't know anything about these things. So it's hard to break away from that. So, you know, they didn't know that they were doing anything wrong. They were just living the life that they seen their parents live and the lives that they have been given to them that they've always done. So no, they didn't think there was anything wrong with it. So, but the you know, and then the other ones that did know, at the end of the day, the only one that ever got any charges was Warren, who, like I said, is still incarcerated to this day and still talking to his flock from the jail. You know,
Yeah.
however small it is now, but it's still there. You know, it's just it's not as big and powerful as it was because I mean they had their own police department, I mean fire department, and all kinds of stuff. They had businesses, you know, because the people were coming in and giving their businesses to the organization. So they had that's why they were able to send him $300,000 a week. A week. Some people don't make $300,000 in
You
we don't make $300,000 a year. He was
you
getting
could
a
you could
week.
draw this as analogy to like drug cartels, like Pablo Escobar's empire,
Yeah,
where he had almost totalitarian control over so many areas that
yeah,
he could breed his own society essentially
yeah.
to think what he you know, to live up to what he thought was necessary, or at least
Mhm,
force people to be within it
mhm,
because they were under
mhm.
his guidance. So it's very
Yeah.
similar notions.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, you know, and Kyle said something about, you know, what about people that don't have children, you know, as far as, you know, but, you know, I mentioned, you know, the people around you, the people that you, you know, deal with, you know, that still you need to heal for yourself, but then also you're not, you know, negatively affecting other people in the workplace or wherever, you know, children or no children. Yeah. It's just good to take a look at yourself and you know, fix whatever you got going on so that other people are not negatively affected by you.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree with that. I mean, I generally am on the side of, in order to be healthy, you know, reflect healthy behavior back to society, you have to be healthy yourself.
yeah.
If you just go out, it's like, I don't know, it's like bumper cars, you know. If you're trying to avoid bumps, the better
Yeah.
technically you are at it, the better you're going to avoid bumps. The when you do
Mhm.
bump, because they can have severe ramifications, those bumps.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely on the side of, but a lot of people don't want to listen to the noise in their own head. They don't want silence. They don't want
Mm-mm.
introspection. They don't want those things because
No, because it hurts.
they pose very scary questions and
Mhm.
sometimes very scary answers, and or
Mhm.
maybe the worst answer, not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
it's just challenging to work on yourself. It's you know it could be heartbreaking and hurtful to think about. You know that maybe what you thought your child have convinced yourself that your childhood was really wasn't, or you know that the people that you loved, you know, didn't really take care of you the way you thought they should have, you know, or, you know, the things that you had to experience and having to go back and relive those thoughts in your mind that were so traumatic to you. Those things are harmful. I mean, not harmful, but hurtful. It's hard to do that. And that's why a lot of people don't do the work because it's just hard to sorry, my my son is critiquing me while I talk.
it's all right. I I just said recently everything should exist with its critiques. I think that's part of the healthy nature of things in existence, right?
I look for constructive criticism. I'm all for it.
Mm.
I called my daughter before I got on here and I said, "How do I look?" I said, "I barely comb my hair and I'm not wearing any makeup." She
Oh, you look fine. Come on.
but I
You all don't
appreciate
know,
that.
but these are my pajamas. This is what I go around the house in every day. So, you know.
That's okay. That's totally okay. I've only got about another 10 minutes. I got to
Mm,
transport. I think I have to transport somebody this afternoon.
mm,
He's
mm,
not, he's been kind of MIA, so I don't know. But with these, you know, the people that I deal with, they're not always stable. So I don't know. I
mm,
don't know.
mm. I
But
understand. Sorry.
I'm going to try. I'm going to go
That's
look
good of
for
you.
him. But I have enjoyed the conversation though. Malachi, That's my son. Y'all can see the chat. Malachi Yuli is my son. He said healthy critiques.
That's right. Constructive. I like the word constructive.
Malachi, you want to jump on real quick before we leave? I'll send you a link. Let's see if I can get him to jump on real quick. We'll see if he jumps in. Malachi's my only son. Out of he said next time. Out of
Hi, Malachi.
6, well, 8 when you count my bonus children. There's only one son. Everybody else is girls. Nothing but girls. But
I'm a father of 3 girls. My wife's brother had 2 girls. My wife's sister had 3 girls. So when my wife's father was around, girls everywhere. So
yeah.
and my father always wanted girls, and he got 3 boys. So I'm living my father's dream. So
yeah, we're looking forward to getting some more boys in the family. My son, we were hoping he was going to have a boy. He just had a little girl. She's a little over 2 months old. So I said, the girls continue. Kyle, do you want to say anything else to add to the conversation before we wrap it up?
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. I know today was a short one, but I'm looking to look at my schedule and see what I got going on the rest of the week. See when we can jump back on again, and somebody else can pick a topic for the next conversation.
Sounds good.
How do you like the title Unfiltered and Unraveled with Diane and Brian?
I'm picking up a theme between walking contradictions and unfiltered, unraveled.
But all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up, and thank you, Brian. I'll reach out to y'all later on today.
Sounds good.
When I get done with this, I gotta go back and do some more packing at mom's, but I'll have to be talking to y'all later.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thanks. Got you.